So we're gonna do something really different today. Well, seems really different. I am going to interview Linda rather than us exactly having a conversation. I'm going to ask her some questions. Um, and the title of this talk is I, Me, Mine, Linda in Context. Okay, ready to go, Linda?
Ready.
Okay, so you're back and working. You took some time off when the fires were raging and near you, 25 miles away from you, I understand. But now you're back and working. And how are you doing? And what's going on down there near the fires? And
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think the most important thing to start with is that um, I'm safe. Many of us are safe. Many of our friends are that have evacuated are back in their home. Tracy's back in her home. Kim Henderson. Many of my friends don't have homes. And it's stable but surreal. The fire's about 43% contained, and they are now going back into the area and putting out the small electrical fires and things around houses that are still smoldering. And I think the thing about this is that it can feel normal at times when you don't see smoke in the air and people are just having conversations in coffee shops and it looks like life is going on as it normally would. And then you catch an image or you hear another story or you get an update, and suddenly that devastation is just back in your consciousness and right there, and it's hard to hold. So it's that time of being in a very surreal space still.
so then you tie in this experience, how we began this daily online meditation, which was right in the beginning of lockdown during the COVID pandemic. How is it similar? What do you pick up on?
This is why I needed Nelly to interview me. I'm not thinking in the same way that I normally think. I'm different. Um, and yes, I felt extremely grateful for what we've created. Nelly and I started this in the pandemic, but then what we've come together to create here is a response to crises. And the wildfires are another crisis that, in a sense, we're all in it together. I mean, I know people are deeply affected by what they're seeing, but there's also something about being the people who are actually in it. And I'm even one step removed. I'm standing near the experience. I'm not completely in it, so I can have a different angle. But it's really, I kind of came up with this as what I see as a principle of reflective meditation is that when a crisis is happening, we can take some time to incubate and to go in with it and be with it and not have to perform or teach even at that point to the crisis that was happening. And I felt really comfortable taking that week and a half, 2 weeks just to really be where I was because I couldn't be with you. I couldn't be with others that weren't experiencing what I was experiencing at that time. It was more painful to do that.
So what is the words? I think I'm going to get them not quite right, but the Buddha said, practice like your hair's on fire. Is it hair?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It was hair. I think that only the hair, not the body.
but hair is, yeah,
Hair on the body. Yeah.
yeah, it could lead to other things, right?
Yeah.
Other parts, but yeah, but so in a way, that's what you're saying. We came together at a time when the world's quote hair was on fire. Now it's more sort of more local, and there's other
Yeah.
fires
There's,
raging,
right.
which I crises
Right.
raging all over the place, but this was much more personal.
Yes, I think that's right. In a sense, it was personal that we weren't all there with it. We weren't all in that kind of similar boat to this, and that I think I came away knowing how our practice is a support for crises. Um, with Sangha, without Sangha, I mean, it was kind of amazing that I didn't need Sangha at that time. I needed to be on my own. And the practice actually was the support that got me through that time on my own. Other things too. But
Uh,
without it, I don't know how I could do it.
yeah, yeah. So you came up early on, excuse me, with this Dharma teaching of I, me, and mine, and the sense of of Linda in context. So you said that to me early on because we did
Yeah.
talk about this time. So excuse me, there's something cooking upstairs that's got a lot of spice in it, and
Little fire in your lungs.
at least a cayenne fire. So what about that? How did this Dharma teaching of I, me, and mine come to you or relate to what you're going through?
We've been talking about this within this group, within this Sangha, especially in regards to our body and being given a diagnosis where our body changes and the I, me, and mine shifts so significantly, you almost don't know who you are anymore, or you can see former self, kind of former body, and now newer body, different body. But there was this sense of, and it was really a surprise because I could feel the burn when I looked at these images. It was like with my mind, I felt it. And almost like my mind was reaching out of my body, like it was just a larger mind body experience with the loss, with the loss of the land, with the loss of the formative structures where I lived for 30 years that held me through 12-step programs, were refuges with friends and cafes where we talked for hours, roads that I walked upon. You know, this was my early training. I went to school for acupuncture in this area. My patients came from the Palisades. So the amount of people I know and the land, which is a most beautiful, I mean, it's a beautiful part of the world. Many people would have desired to live there. I only got to live there because I was in rent control. That's the only way I could even really be a part of that community. But there seemed to be, with those memories coming in, a way that I was revisiting my past and looking at who I was and how I was on that land with those structures, with those people. And that I, me, and mine became very interesting to me suddenly. Like I hadn't thought of the Palisades as mine. That was, but there it was when when we were losing it, it was mine. That was me. That was a part of what formed me.
So some people might think like, you said that this practice held you through it, and it seemed like part of what you were going through mentally, emotionally was about loss and grief and this being a part of you. And some people might think going back into the past isn't the practice, rather that we should just note it and move on, be in the present. But this was really useful to you, wasn't it, to really go through this?
I think we've been training ourselves to do this. This is part of what has been cultivated is this interest and curiosity in the past and how to integrate it with where we're at now. And that integration actually changes the I, me, and mine of this present moment. Um, and that is so important, not to transcend I, me, and mine. I don't feel like proud that I didn't feel any I, me, and mine in this, which, I've heard talked about as kinds of practice. It's more that, oh, I actually have been integrating that in. And that I think reflective meditation is specifically practice starts to do that with us. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And there's something so wholesome and so beneficial about that. And that might be a whole other talk because
I
we're
think so. We're
out
at
of
time.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
thank you everyone for being there, even when I wasn't, and knowing that you were there, being in touch. There was a way that the way we interacted, however we did, it felt so immensely kind. So I think it's also there was a way I was with everything that just even small kindnesses felt huge. And I know I've heard Janet talk about that. I know I've heard Susan talk about that. I've heard others talk about that. But actually, I got to experience that this time. So thank you. Okay.
I think it might be my